There's a story of a man in my country, where I'm from in the Bahamas. It's a beautiful country. This old man lived in one of our islands outside a plantation where they grew cane. One day he was passing the plantation and looked over the wall, and the owner of the plantation had some men were cutting down a big tree, and the old man looked at the men as they chopped the tree in pieces and threw the logs in a heap to burn. The old man stopped for a moment, and as he watched them throwing the big pieces of log on the heap of fire, he came to the gate and shouted to the owner of the plantation and said, "Sir, is it possible for me to ask you for a piece of that wood that you're throwing away?" And the man said to him, "This is nothing but junk, and this tree is a nuisance. We're cutting it down because it is in the way of our progress, and we want to throw this out of our plantation. It is nothing but junk." And the old man, with a twinkle in his eye, said to the owner, "Can I have a piece of your junk?" The plantation owner was irritated by the old man and says, "Go ahead, take it away. I have no need for this junk." And the old man picked up a large piece of that trunk of the tree and hoisted it on his shoulders, and he staggered back to the village in our island with this heavy piece of junk on his shoulder. He walked into his little cabin and he placed the piece of junk in the middle of the floor. Then he did something that was very rare in most of our lives. He picked up his chisel and his hammer, and he walked around the piece of junk as if he was possessed with some spirit. And he kept stopping for a moment, and he looked at the junk, and he would seem as if he saw something in the piece of junk. And suddenly, he took his hammer and his chisel as if he was possessed, and he began to beat the piece of junk with the hammer and the chisel. And as he swung, pieces flew from that piece of junk. And he worked as if he was under a spell, and he kept on sweating and beating and chiseling the piece of junk. And when he was finished, he freed from that piece of junk a beautiful golden eagle. He was so tired and exhausted. At 4:30 a.m. in the morning, he fell among the chips of wood and fell asleep, clutching tightly to the eagle he had freed from that piece of junk. The next morning he awoken, and he took the beautiful eagle that he had chiseled from the junk, and he placed it on the porch of his little hut. A few days later, the owner of the plantation came by in his beautiful automobile, chauffeured by his driver. And as he passed the cabin going toward his plantation, his eyes caught this beautiful bird, and he told his driver to stop the car. And they pulled into the little village yard and asked the old man, "Where did you get that from?" The old man asked, "Why do you want it?" He said, "How much would you take for that beautiful eagle?" And the old man said, for a few moments, with twinkles in his eyes, "I would take $5,000 for that eagle." The owner of the plantation was so excited because he thought that is worth more than $5,000. He took out his wallet and he wrote a check for $5,000, gave it to the old man, and he picked up the eagle and he ran to his car and he said with a great grin on his face, "I got treasure." And as he rode away into the distance, the old man looked at the check and kissed it and said, "One man's junk is another man's treasure." I believe that that piece of stump, that log, is some of you in this room. People think that your dreams cannot come to pass. Your friends and your family and those who work on your job have been asking you for the last 12 months, why are you still with the Eagle team? Why don't you get involved in something that is more secure? Why don't you do something that is more permanent? There's no future in this kind of sales business. Why don't you settle down and do something important? But I want you to know that Myles Monroe has come tonight to walk around you, because I see inside of you an eagle that they can't see. I believe that entrapped in every person in this building is an awesome, beautiful bird that no one else can see except the one who created you. And I believe that inside of you is the ability to fly to heights that no one has ever believed you could fly. If you believe that, I want you to give yourself a hand, because you are confident to believe that.